Quite common, and it's so obvious every time you're in a team environment with someone. You've got that type of player called train like Tarzan and play like Jane. They do their best work in the training paddock. They're the strongest in the gym. They're the fittest in the 1.2. But then when it comes to the field, it just doesn't add up. And why is that? So before we get to that, before we get to, how to achieve the best performances, I'm going to take it all the way back first. I'm going to take it back to why you are feeling the way you are right now. Why are you in and out of love of the sport that give you so much happiness? Why is it such a roller coaster every week? You don't know where you stand with the coach. 1 minute he's talking to you, the next minute he can't make eye contact with you, and before you know it, you're overthinking every situation. You've got a contract, you might be relying on this salary to pay your bills or get by, and you're worrying about next year. Maybe you're down to your last contract. All of these things add up to why you're not currently performing. But deep down, you know the why. You know your why. Why are you here? The highs that the sports brings you. That's the camaraderie, the hell training sessions together, and then building this massive bond that you're like a little brotherhood. If it's the wins, if it's the trophies, or if it's the contract upgrade from performing well, or if it's that feeling of satisfaction. Always these are the reasons why we do the sport. These are the reasons why. But on the flip side, the injuries that come with it, constantly fighting for a position, in and out of the team. Once you get injured, you're back down to the bottom of the rung, and now you've got to work yourself back to that position. Dwelling on mistakes. You do so many things good in a game, but you are dwelling on that one mistake, and that's ruined your week. And on top of that, if you've lost that week, then it's a double whammy. All of these things contribute to why you are feeling the way you are right now. But deep down that you have so much more to offer. So how about that? How does that work? How do we overcome these things so you can bring the best version of yourself on the field? So that you can play like Tarzan instead of playing like Jane. Well, there's loads of ways that you can achieve this, and I'm going to talk about my own experiences and how that then is how I learned to overcome that. And this is a journey. So if you are young in your career or if you are older in your career, then there's some gems in this right now for how you can mature as an adult with a mindset of a growth mindset and learn how you can play the best you can on the field. So one thing that I learned, whenever you felt like you were chasing your tail, whenever you felt like you had, you've got someone in your position who's, getting an opportunity over you, and then you finally get your opportunity, you feel like you've got to do something amazing to cement that position. And that's the worst mentality to have going into that game, thinking you've got to throw that Hail Mary pass or, that amazing kick or run around every defender and score a try to cement yourself in that team. And don't get me wrong, that is achievable. But where you are right now, it's really bringing it back to the fundamentals. So, and how do you do that? So, one thing that we do with one thing I do with my clients, and one thing I do with all of the professional athletes in there, is bringing it back and stripping it back. You should go into a game with a game plan of, what are the 3 or 4 things that I need to do, which I can tick off pretty quickly in a game, which is going to build confidence. Because everyone we play with or everything we do in life is built on confidence. And if we don't have that, then we go into overthinking. We go into self-doubt. We go into self-sabotage on the field. So one thing you can do before a game, what are 2 or 3 things that you can do in that game which are easy things to tick off? That might be making that first tackle off the kickoff. That might be making sure you're at every breakdown if you're in rugby union. Or it might be if you're in rugby league or in other sports, it might be, support play or getting your hands on early of the ball in the game. Little things like that, getting your hands on the ball early. All of these things add up because what happens from that then that knocks the nerves off you. That knocks all these little things off you. Before you know, then you're playing eyes up. You're visualizing where defenders are, where gaps are. How do we get to those spaces? These all add up. So everything, it winds back to that first and foremost. Is bringing it back to what are 3 or 4 things you can do on the field. And visualize yourself doing that. before a game, weeks into the game, whoever you're playing that weekend, visualize yourself on the field doing those things. Visualize it. You got to see it to believe it. You can't just think it's going to happen without practicing in these things. So that's one thing you can do. The next thing is, if you've had a couple of mistakes in a game and in the week in training now, the coach is not giving you the same type of look that he used to come to you. And in the games, you might be making those mistakes and you're looking at the players on the bench going, shit, is that guy warming up for me? To overcome all of these things, I want you to get a pen. I want you to get a paper. And I want you to draw a line down the paper. And at the top, I want you to put can and can't. And I want you to identify what are the things that you can control, which are going to help you in the week to the game, the build up. So that might be journaling. That might be making sure you do your extras, working on your hands, your ball skills, working on your defense, if that's your kicking, whatever it is, making sure that you're doing these things at training, making sure you're doing your rehab. If you are quite prone to niggles and injuries, make sure you're doing your ice baths, you're stretching. These are all the things you can control. Putting your best foot forward, making sure you're sleeping the right amount, making sure you're fluid, you're hydrated. All of these things add up, but you've got to make sure you're doing them. If you're not, then when it comes to a game and you're not as confident or you've made a mistake, well, then it's only one person to blame. It's yourself because you've not been putting in the work. But if you have been putting in the work, then you can look at yourself in those moments and go, hang on, well, I've ticked all of these boxes. Move on. Move on to the next job. Don't dwell there. But if, again, it comes back to what can't you control? We look on the other side of that list. Well, you can't control the coach's opinion. You can't control the weather conditions. You can't control if you get sick that week. You can't control if you've got an injury which is required to rest or have surgery. The worst thing you can do is play through a bad injury and make it worse. Trust me, I've done that too. So you need to ask yourself what you can and can't control in every situation building up to these events. From that then, once you identify it, once you write it down, once you tick these things off, you instantly get clarity. You instantly remove overwhelm and you're instantly more in the present. There's other things you can do like meditation. There's other things from that then, is speaking to someone. If finding out what it is that makes you tick. These are many other aspects of it. The next thing then is, what is it you really want? What is it you really want in rugby or in sports, whatever it is? Be honest with yourself. Voice that. If you're afraid to say what you really want out loud, then you're not confident enough about it. You've really got to put yourself in that position. The difference between the best players and the worst players, or not the worst players, the average players, is they move on from mistakes very quickly. So if you're in these game situations and you've made a mistake and you're still dwelling on it for another 10 minutes, and it happened 10 minutes ago, you can't change that. You've got to just move on. Next job. That was always a word I'd use. Next job. What's next? And I'm telling you these things from experience of mistakes, of the good, and what worked for me. But when you can have that form of nonchalant mentality in your games, or when you can have that, I'm in the flow state right now. These all come, guys, from doing the work. You don't just wake up one day and go, I'm going to turn it on today. You've got to do the work. So in saying that, listen to some of the things I've just given right now. Write them down. See if you can implement that into your game and see if you can get the positives from that. What are your next month's goals? If it is, you're currently on the bench, or maybe you're not even in the squad at the moment. Maybe it is you're trying to fight to get on the bench. And if you're on the bench, you're trying to get that starting jersey. It's a cutthroat sport, but you've got to implement these things to get the mindset right, because everyone trains the same. Everyone eats the same pretty much. But if you can tap into the mind and have that 1 or 2% over the next player in your position or the opposition, I guarantee you that will change that'll be the difference between a win or a loss. I hope this helps.